Hello, everyone again. This is Cesar from the Global DRS platform. I think we are ready. Martin, Esther, whenever you want to, we can start.
Thank you, Cesar. Here, Martin, also from the Global DRS platform. I will be hosting today's event and presenting the five speakers that we have today. Five speakers, they have a lot of experience in this domain of reuse and how to try to close the loop so that we stop finding packaging, plastic bottles in nature. We are here today because, as you have seen on the screen and on the invitation of this webinar, reuse is no longer an abstract or distant idea. It is a practical need if we want to reduce waste, keep material circularity in the loop, and design systems that are actually return packaging back into the loop. Around the world, we have seen that deposit return systems are the most effective way to prevent waste materials from being littered and ending up in nature, and to ensure the collection is of high quality of materials, consistent and fair. But deposit systems alone are not the end of the story. Returnability and reuse, as many of you may know, open up a world of new possibilities, as we will hear today, and also new questions, like how can we make reuse scalable? How can we make it integrated with the DRS systems that are already in place or that are coming into place? How can we work with the social aspects as well, especially in the global South? How can we make it context appropriate so that we don't bring and we don't force solutions that are already working somewhere else in a place where they probably are not going to function in the same way? So we were going to explore many of these questions today. The panelists are going to help us with that. And the goal today is, as we were saying, to share knowledge and spark reflection and connect experiences across countries and sectors. We hope to leave not only you with information, but also inspired and with concrete ideas and collaborations that can help accelerate real reuse on the ground. The space is about learning for each other and building progress together. So Cesar now will share with us a little bit about the poll. Or before, we were going to talk about a short introduction of the Global Deposit and Return Platform so that we know who is hosting today's event. The Global DRS Platform is a platform dedicated to a world without product and packaging waste through implementation of deposit return systems. We are basically a balanced workspace where we want to invite people from different backgrounds to meet, connect, and collaborate, to share knowledge and turn this knowledge into action. Today, we're trying to do this throughout connecting experts, legislators, and different stakeholders, also train and certifying individuals worldwide in DRS implementation, and providing also technical support. You will see in this QR code, before Cesar starts sharing with us the poll, a QR code. If you want, you can scan it now. This will take you to our website where you will find a DRS Academy, which is the section where we are certifying people as DRS experts, a resource hub, and also our implementation support part. We wanted also to mention that as this webinar, we will also have webinars next year, and we wanted to invite you all to presence them. Some are going to talk about islands, DRS in islands, the rest for other type of materials, legislation. We're also going to do webinars specific about Asia, Africa, and about the social aspects as well. We will share this later too, so that you can register if you're interested in joining us again during next year events. Now about the poll, Cesar.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. the thing is about the poll. Well, I'm César Sánchez. I'm based in Barcelona. Also part of the team of the Global DRS platform, as I was saying before. And yeah, we have prepared something in order to, make you guys engage with the webinar in a better way, which is a poll integrated through an app called Slido. You are supposed to receive like a pop-up in your screens asking you to open the Slido app and participate in the webinar through that app. But I think it's not working because it worked this morning. This morning it was working, but right now I think it's not working. So I'm going to ask you, Martin, if you can share the QR code that I just sent you. Yeah, this one. So we wanted to ask you some questions. Where are you based and in which field are you working currently? But as I see the integration within Zoom is not working, we are going to ask you just to scan this QR code and yeah, answer the two questions in order we get to know each other better. Also through this Slido app and through this QR code, you will be able to hit us with all the comments, questions, or if you need any help. So use this QR code, use this app, and make your questions, and we are going to try to answer that questions during the webinar. And also, last but not least, we are going to record the webinar, and we are going to share all the presentations, and if we get some answers, some questions without answer, we are going to try to contact with the speakers and try to, reply to all the questions in our website. But I think this is it. Esther, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes,
Esther.
Esther. Hello, everyone. I'm Esther from Global DRS Platform also. And for the question and answer, will be available on our website afterwards. Once the webinar ends, we will send you a link where you can find them. So yes, I hope you enjoy the webinar. Let's do it.
Thank you, Esther. So far, we have 19 people who have scanned the QR code and have responded. And we are answering, Cesar, where are you based question. Then you're going to put another question, right? Just for everyone to be aware of that.
Yeah, we're going to give 1 minute so everyone can access the QR code and answer the first question. And after that, we are going to also hit you with another one. And yeah, in the same Slido app for those who are already in, you are going to find a little tab, Q&A tab. So you can make your comments or your question through that tab, and we will be able to get back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Cesar. Now, briefly sharing the structure for today. This was a brief introduction. Now we're going to go to the panelists. They're going to have between 5 and 7 minutes each. After that, we're going to have a panel discussion. There's going to be questions. So if you also have questions in the QR code that we shared right now, you have also a tab that you can click on the left side. You can choose Q&A, and there you can send your questions to us, and we will take them so that we can integrate them during the panel discussion. And after that, we are going to have a brief closing. We're going to be recording the whole session and uploading it on our website. And as Esther said, all the questions that are not taken today are going to be shared with the panelists afterwards, so we'll get responses from them and put up in the website. Please make sure that you mention, if you have a question that's specifically targeted to one panelist, mention that, because then we can easily orient the question to the correct person. That's very important. Now, perfect. So now I'm going to introduce Graciela Oblitas. Grace holds a bachelor degree in chemistry from the University of Buenos Aires. And after 2 decades working in global consumer goods companies such as Colgate and Clorox, she built deep expertise in R&D and new business technologies. Over the years, her work led her to question the role of packaging, the culture of overconsumption, and how products could be designed in a more sustainable way. Driven by this reflection and her commitment to creating practical, scalable solutions, she co-founded La Chemisterie, and Grace focuses on developing innovations that reduce single-use plastics and elevate the value of materials through smarter product design. She has led the development of LeBrac, a semi-automatic refill station, and Le Cap, an ultra-concentrated cleaning capsule. Both concepts are designed to be versatile and applicable across home and personal care categories. Her work reflects a clear mission, enabling more sustainable consumption through science, creativity, and meaningful innovation. So Grace, please take the floor. You can share the presentation that you have. Right.
Okay, so hello, everybody. Thank you, Martin. Let me try to share. Okay, so can you see my screen?
No,
No,
we can't. Grace.
Okay.
I can try to share my screen and
Here.
here. Okay, great.
Perfect.
Can you see it now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Just for
Okay.
everyone attending, the second question is open, so you can take it in the Slido app. Thanks.
Okay, so it's not just a presentation, it's just a few slides to show you what we developed. So this is what we do is trying to give the consumers, let's say, a simple and faster way to reuse their bottles, their packaging of massive consumer products, that it's home care products or personal products. And so for that purpose, we develop what we call a refill station. Is like several automatic machines, one for each product, and that it's like a kind of refill on the go model. So the consumers can buy the product for the first time, go to the store and fill it again with the same product. These give us also traceability for the product they are buying. It has like quality assurance controls. The products is also accomplishing regulations from the health minister, and it's really a great experience. And I think that this is important because this is like an effort that the consumer is doing to bring their bottles, because it's not only one, there are lots of them, and that needs to bring it. So it's you need to give them also a good experience in the moment, so that they can go again, as well as given a good product that can so that they can come again to buy it again. So this is the first system. This is like a second model that we call return and refill. This is like at the bottle, they buy the bottle the first time and then they leave it there at the store, and we reprocess the bottle. That is our, let's say, social part. And this can be similar to the deposit refill, the deposit and return platform, for example. In both cases, consumers are paying for the bottle the first time. I think that it's very important to know that the product or the package has a value, and that if they not bring it again, they have to pay it for that. So it's like an incentive, a money incentive, because from the whole consumer populations, you have to, let's say, you have those that are more conscious of reusing and bringing the package again, and those that not. And the other thing that maybe it's important to share with you is what we internally call infinite economy. Like the infinite economy for us, for La Chemisterie, is like reusing the package both at the commercialization phase, that is at the store, the consumer part, let's say, to bring the bottle, refill it, reuse it, and refill it again. And then from the manufacturing phase. The manufacturing phase is to bring the container, to fill the refill station, clean it, and fill it again to go and come back again to the refill station. That's a very important part, because that is like one of the barriers that, let's say, that we were facing over the years was in that specific area, the manufacturing piece, because the actors that play at the, let's say, packaging facilities or formulating facilities are not, let's say, so familiar with this model of reusing. So I think that that is important for us to share after. And well, this is just to show you like the multiple products that can be used in the same machine. The machine was developed to be very flexible for different kind of products, home care, laundry care, personal care. So from shampoo to a laundry a soap. And this is also important because if we want to scale it, we need to have a system that can be the same and not necessary to be adapted for different formulations. So from the technical side, I think that also this was important and was what took us about almost 2 years to develop when we introduced the concept. And well, so I think that this is like a very a summary of what Lab Chemistry does, and which is our role in the communities to like offer an alternative to the same products that consumers buy every day, but in a more sustainable way.
Thank you, Grace, a lot. That was really clear. I think you made really good the point that that the experience for the consumer is very important, the scalability, the technical part of scalability, and that we need to create value. And I think we are probably going to hear this from the other speakers as well. Now, Mohamed Kamal, we are going to change the order. Tiza, you were supposed to go next, but we're going to go with Mohamed because he needs to leave before, if that's fine for you too. Please share your screen, Mohamed, if you want to share a presentation. I will read a little bit your bio. Mohamed Kamal is the Executive Director of Greenish Foundation and a solid waste expert with experience across different initiatives in the waste value chain over the past 7 years. Please, Mohamed, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. And it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for having me in this webinar. I'm joining you a little bit ad hoc from Cairo, and I will be sharing my experience and my organization's experience as well, working on reuse and refill as an attempt to understand what could work in a rural setting. Don't have a presentation, but I wanted to give an overview over our experience and how we have grown our understanding over the past year, specifically on community perceptions, especially related to reuse. So the first point I would like to cover, so if you don't know the geography of Egypt specifically, and the geography of some similar Arab countries as well, we are split into very different urban and rural settings. Rural settings are very different in terms, in comparison to urban settings, especially in the setup of the buildings, the setup of the services as well, and the nature of the lifestyle. So by nature, urban settings are much more consumptive in terms of materials than rural settings. However, in recent years in Egypt, this has shifted. Recent years is in the past 10 years. And rural settings are starting to have very similar urban consumption patterns, specifically when it comes to single-use packaging and single-use products. The reasons behind this is convenience and how cheap single-use plastics have become over the past decade in countries like Egypt. So what we're starting to see, and as you can imagine, in rural areas where there's less services, there's now more accumulation of waste, there's more challenges related to waste management, and specifically, there's more challenges related to leakage of plastic waste, and it's become a very visible problem. The first thing we realized, though, is reuse and refill as a concept is something that existed. It's actually quite natural for people to assume that something that they have or they consider to have or to hold any form of value provides them with that they would keep using until it's no more value for them. So when we did our community engagement meetings and sessions with different businesses, we focused more on the community members in a specific village in Badrashin, which is the rural area just south of Greater Cairo. In the village of Dahshur in the district of Badrashin. We met with a few families, we met with a few businesses as well to understand how have their behavior and consumption habits changed over the years. And we started off from an interest on solid waste and reuse and refill. And what became apparent is we were starting to focus more on supply chain. It took us to a place that we didn't really work on before. The supply chain of goods, the supply chain of services, both connected together, and the provision of basic goods. So one of the key things that became apparent is if we want, or when we were asking them questions, to change their purchasing habits and to provide, so for them to start to purchase in bulk, for instance, or to start to use reusable material. What became apparent is that some income categories, because of the convenience of purchasing things on a day-by-day basis, which obviously is packaged in horribly single-use, very poor quality single-use plastics, because of that convenience, they have shifted their behavior over time. And they've reached a point where for them, it's hard to comprehend the life where they're purchasing things in bulk. And this was for certain lower income category households. For higher income category households who do less frequent visits to shops or they order things, what became apparent is they are willing, but is it convenient enough? And convenience was the key factor. And most generations can cite a time where plastic was not even a concept used. So they were willing to engage in the discussion, but convenience became king. And one of the key things that we focused on was the supply chain. Where are we getting the goods from? How good is the quality? Can we trust to now get our vegetables without plastic bags? Can we store our vegetables in a refrigerator without plastic bags, which is another concept. Refrigerators are a luxury for some households. So you will find that some households actually share larger refrigerators and they use plastic bags to segregate things from each other. And for them, that was the solution that plastic provided. So what we started to work on was we started to compile and segregate those basic goods. So what is the monthly purchasing of a household in this village? What are they purchasing in terms of tomatoes or vegetables, in terms of wheat, in terms of bread, in terms of salt, vinegar, etc. Taking it down to basically what is consumed in food and also other resources as well. And we started to track what is realistic to intervene in. Because some products fluctuate a lot. It would require a lot of institutional work with the government. Because in Egypt, for instance, we are the biggest consumer of wheat, of imported wheat in the world. Wheat is a very big part of our diet in all its forms, for bread, for other parts of our dishes as well that we consume on a daily basis. So if we come there and wheat is heavily subsidized by the government is the direct provider. To work on this, we would require to work at a governmental level. So that became a bit challenging. And wheat, specifically bread, consumes a lot of single-use plastics, and especially in rural areas. So although that made sense to try and find a reuse or refill model of some sort that has zero packaging, it didn't work. So what we started to focus on were legumes. We also consume a lot of legumes in Egypt and in rural areas because legumes are more affordable than meat. So meat and chicken, etc., are for protein are less consumed frequency basis in comparison to urban areas. So you'd find that legumes are consumed more, and legumes are predominantly packaged in plastic. So we started to look at the local attar or apothecary, I think is the name in English. I always get it wrong, but it's a place where you actually can go and refill. It's a place that existed in the past. You can go and refill your seeds, your rice, your pasta, but the demand had sort of plummeted in recent years. And what eventually
Sorry,
happened is
Mohammed, you
people
have
started
1
to.
minute left.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you for
thank
the
you.
remark. Perfect. What started to happen was you started to see people go to supermarkets. But when we went there, we realized, oh, they're willing to engage and to start to provide legumes again. and people can come and refill their packaging. So we found that there are certain products we can intervene in, and we can just capitalize on the existing value chain within the village. And we also started to explore, can we deliver things to households to avoid the packaging need? Because there are existing reuse and refill models in the village that we found. The water, for instance, there's a horse cart that passes by the houses and people refill their big jargons of water. So that's a refill model that exists naturally for over 20 years in the village. So why not try to replicate this for other models as well? This is a quick overview of our experience as Greenish, and we're still learning in the process. We're in the plans of doing a pilot with a number of households to try and have them pay a monthly fee and see how this could work to just eliminate packaging in the middle and have a direct reuse and refill model. Happy to take any suggestions or questions after the webinar as well. And if anyone is interested, please feel free to reach out. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mohamed. That was really interesting. I think it would be really nice to keep on hearing about more examples and models of, especially how can we create this systemic, holistic approach that you are talking about? Because it's not just about doing a product, but creating the framework, the infrastructure, so that this can scale and pick up. Before we go with you, Tiza, I have a message here from Cesar that he says that we have the results from the poll. Cesar, do you want to share them briefly? So then we continue with the panelists.
Yeah, I think we can all see a little bit. We are people from Europe, Africa, South America, Asia, and Oceania. So this is, this tells us that reuse is an interesting topic and it's something that can work in every corner of the world. This is the first question that we have asked you. We are going to launch you. If you scan, I'm going to try to share again sorry, because I'm with two screens working and I cannot look at you and share my screen. So I'm sharing again for a few minutes a QR code that we are using in order to participate in our poll. And also, if you have questions, use this QR code and use the Slido app to hit us. So yeah, this is it.
Thank you, Cesar. So now with Tiza. Tiza Mafira is a law and public policy expert specializing in climate change and circular economy. She is co-founder and executive director of the Plastic Diet Indonesia, which works with governments and communities to push for policies to prevent single-use plastics to be replaced with reuse systems. She is a founding member of the Asia Reuse Consortium and the Indonesia Reuse Association. She is also part of the public-private partnership to reduce, reuse, replace single-use packaging, PR3, a global organization focusing on designing standards that will allow reuse solutions to transform from small, disconnected ventures into massive infrastructure-wide systems. Please, Tiza, if you want to share a presentation, you can do it now. You should have permission as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Martin. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I do have a very short slide that I'll share to kick off the conversation. But essentially, I think I was briefed to share what we're doing from a large city, right? And Jakarta has just been has just won the title of biggest city in the world at the moment. So, well, our work in Jakarta is very complicated and complex because of the size of it. But I wanted to share that work just a little bit. What we call it Reuse in Jakarta. It's a program that we've been running for the past 3 years. And it's a combination of efforts to push through policies that are beneficial for reuse or encourage reuse, mainly to support the work that we've done to phase out single-use plastics, because we didn't want the phase out to then be replaced with other single-use material. We didn't want it to be replaced with single-use paper or single-use, spun-bound bags and things like that. So we quickly wanted to introduce reuse systems as the best alternative to single-use. through policy, through grassroots expansion of reuse and piloting reuse and familiarizing communities with reuse, through also industry engagement, so working with well-known brands and opening dialogues with them and finding out whether they're interested in establishing or testing out reuse systems within their supply chain, as well as familiarizing the funder landscape as well with reuse. So we then, over the course of this work, facilitated the collaboration of lots of reuse startups that were trying to do the same thing in different, for different products. So there were startups that were trying to do reuse for bulk stores, for example, but there were also startups that trying to do reuse for e-commerce solutions, reuse for events, like cup services, reuse for food materials, also reuse for home products. So there were a lot of different really interesting entrepreneurial solutions that were starting to crop up. And so we facilitated the birth of the Indonesia Reuse Association in order to provide reuse players with more voice to speak to policymakers and to speak to big industrial players. So this has been an exciting development. This has been something that was just launched this year. Now, what we believe is crucial for reuse to take hold and scale and replicate in a citywide scale is infrastructure, right? It is much more than consumer behavior. It's much more than consumer choice. It is infrastructure that requires us to acknowledge, just like the speaker before me said, to acknowledge that products have a long supply chain preceding the moment in which they change hands to the consumer. So we're acknowledging that the consumer basically only sees the front end, so the user experience, but then there's a pretty long back end that happens before the consumer sees the product, which contributes to how convenient consumers believe that product to be, and whether consumers will prefer that product or not. So we've broken it down to four main things, which is logistics, packing, which is your normal logistics and your normal packing, except this is reverse logistics, and repacking, right? And then washing facilities, which is kind of the new thing that needs to be scaled up, as well as temporary collection points, which is your normal temporary collection points, your normal like DRS systems, but mainly for reuse instead of for single-use items that are meant for recycling. Now, and of course, if we scale that up citywide, this would look like this. It would look like a huge infrastructure that connects the manufacturers, it connects all of the retailers, the cafes, the restaurants, anywhere that you would find food and beverage and home products and skincare products. It would connect the households to the collection points. The reverse logistics would move back and forth between these different actors. You would have washing facilities, much more washing facilities spread out across the city. And all of this would ideally be governed by an efficient government regulatory system. But this is something that needs to be adapted based on the scale of the city. If we're talking about a city as big as Jakarta, you would have to deal with long supply chains. If you're talking about a suburban kind of smaller city, then it's probably a shorter supply chain with more localized products, maybe more non-branded products, right? And for the context of Indonesia, we have islands as well. So this will look slightly different depending on the scale of the city itself, but we're excited to be kind of doing those categories and adjusting what the model would look like depending on the city where you're operating. So that's it from me. I just wanted to share that we've done a lot of studies, and if you're interested in looking at these I've linked them here. I just wanted to maybe call out the one on the right, the right one, the fourth one, right, is specifically about sachets. So if the question is what's unique about Indonesia or other developing countries, which that we need to take into consideration, it's that customers are used to getting products in very small sachet size. So a lot of the solutions that we ended up talking about for reuse is how do you provide options for customers who can only buy small amounts per day because they're living on a day-by-day paycheck, right? Reuse, whether that's a return system or a dispense or refill system, actually came out as a convenient way to replace sachets. And so we did a whole analysis on that and the economic net benefits of shifting from a sachet economy into a reuse economy. That's it from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiza. I'm really curious because you talked about facilitation and about the complexity of many stakeholders and the challenges. So maybe in the panel, I'm sure we will get to that question. It would be really nice to dive a little deeper into that. But before, we're going to go with Nadine. Nadine, now's your turn. Nadine is a civil society leader working at the intersection of environmental sustainability, community resilience, and policy. She is the founder and director of Wahab, 2026 winner of Ocean Love Award. Wahab is a supervisor board member of Greenpeace MENA and serves as director of Sustainable Network Egypt, a community of environmental organizations, social enterprises, and advocates. Wahab's work focuses on building cross-sector partnerships and supporting community-centered approaches to policy and advocacy. She has written several articles and developed several publications to support environmental and climate advocates, philanthropists, and policy makers. Please, Nadine, the floor is yours. You can share perfect.
Hello.
That's
Yes,
great.
can everyone see what's
We can see perfectly well.
perfectly? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about building on basically what Mohamed Kamal mentioned earlier. Is I actually have an experience in a non-urban beachside tourist community in South Sinai called the Hub. And so I'm just going to go through this, and then I guess we can come to the questions when we open up for questions. Again, I'm going to flip rather quickly. I've done the presentation will spend 20 seconds on each slide. There we go. So in the Hub, we had Friday markets, which local vendors made food, provided, local goods, whether they're necklaces, handcrafts, and a lot of food and beverages. And there was a lot of waste. Food stalls and small batch beverage producers relied on disposables to be able to sell their goods and for their customers to take them home. One of the things that we saw here, which kind of triggered this idea of reuse at the time, was locals actually brought their own Tupperware and took it home. But as a tourist community, a lot of the visitors did not have their own reuse. So the idea was to support them in decreasing waste. And this is the problem we see. The waste, this is an actual shot from underwater in Dahab. This was actually taken last year, long after this project continued. But you continue to see plastic has overtaken our wonderful coral reefs. This is under the ocean, near the shore, about, I think I would say, probably 50 to 20 to 100 meters, somewhere around there, out from the shoreline. And this is actually what our beautiful coral reefs have been turned to. So the community was frustrated, and a lot of them took actions. We sought alternatives and did a lot of community cleanups. Unfortunately, I just want to point out that plastic, disposable, non-plastic or alternatives to plastic were extremely expensive. And whether we're talking paper, you're talking about a price point difference of almost 500 to 1,000% price increase. In partnership at the time with the city council, the governorate, local NGOs, schools and businesses, Eco Dahab supported the decree by the governor of South Sinai. On March 1st, it went into implementation. Most of 2019, we worked with the governor to get down this decree, and it actually was one of the most robust plastic bans we had seen, and one of the first in Egypt. Red Sea actually beat us to the punch. The Red Sea governorate beat South Sinai to the punch by a couple of days. But this is a poster that we put on across Egypt, and working in coordination with this poster that we put in businesses across Egypt to let them know about the plastic ban, we actually provide them with non-plastic alternatives, which again were much more expensive and put a huge burden on the businesses and still created waste. It was just non-plastic waste. The community actually in Egypt, in Dahab, was very engaged. As you can see here, this was one of the cleanups we had in August, I think, 2020. We had a huge cleanup campaign across Egypt, and Dahab engaged with multiple cleanup campaigns, multiple dive centers, businesses, all went down, the community, the school, everyone went down to clean up Dahab's beaches. This continues till today. We view this, because you can never clean up the plastic enough, we view this as more of a public engagement campaign where we actually talk to some of the tourists on some of the issues around plastic and how they can help us reduce plastic pollution and this beautifully pristine beachfront. Unfortunately, the regulation failed. Again, like I'd mentioned before, it was very difficult to find plastic alternatives. Dahab is a few hours, at minimum 6-hour drive from Cairo, if we don't take any checkpoints into consideration. And so getting alternatives to Dahab incurs a huge transportation cost, and enforcement of the law or the decree. This wasn't a law, I apologize. This was a local governor-wide regulation, was very difficult to enforce because there was no legislative authority given to the governor to be able to impose fines. And so this is one of the limitations of a purely regulatory approach. And this failure made reuse a much more practical way, a practical alternative to minimize our plastic pollution problem. And we shifted from external mandates. So we weren't looking more at government officials or outside partners to be able to help solve it. And we were actually looking at a community-led, a community-driven initiative. Sorry, I will go back.
You have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And you can see here, this is the bottles that we collected. This was the solution. Was we started this campaign and there was a deposit, as you will look on all the way on the right. One of the businesses, this was just one, there were several businesses that hosted deposit sites, and then we would pick them up, clean them, and collect them and sell them back to the community. We, at the Friday markets, like we mentioned before, we would sell, we would rent plates and cutlery by the hour. We would support any sustainable reuse initiatives like BE wraps. And then we would also sell to the vendors there empty jars and bottles where they could share their products. This wasn't about reuse. It was actually a cultural, about embedding a cultural sustainability. So we developed a reuse kit for visitors and a magazine that talked to them about the importance of reuse and how they can help the environment. This is just one page, but there were several pages, including sustainability, how to deal with dogs,
I think she's frozen.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
she lost her connection. Maybe we can continue with Willemijn and
I
try
think we
to
can do.
get Nadine back. Yeah.
Yeah, in the meanwhile, Cesar, do you want to share the QR code again? There is a question tab, as we mentioned before. So if you want to make any questions to any of the panelists, please remember to address them specifically. And we can move on to you, Willemijn.
Yeah, this is the second question that you pitch to you. You can see a lot of civil society representatives, but lots of business also. So that's a good sign also. Reuse is interesting not only for NGOs and civil society people, but also for business people.
Exactly. Willemijn, are you with us? Oh, perfect. So Willemijn is a renowned international game changer in the world of circular plastics, being highly committed to preventing plastics from ending up in our environment. She founded Serious Business, an impact-driven company that helps major brands to close the plastic loop. With a background as a business controller, Willemijn combines sharp financial insights with a passion for sustainability, providing that environmental responsibility and business success go hand in hand. With over 18 years of experience in sustainable innovation, program management, business development, and finance, she has spearheaded groundbreaking initiatives that transform industries and accelerate the shift toward a circular economy. Thank you, Willemijn, for being here with us today.
Sure, well, great pleasure to be here. And I'll try to be brief because we hardly have any time for Q&A. So I'm the director of Serious Business, and we've been working a lot on trying to prevent plastic waste, not just through product and packaging design, but also through reuse, trying to book concrete results that are scalable for the industry. So this is a piece of all of the publications we made and some of the projects we ran in reuse, and pointing out that in all of our projects that we are trying to look at not just the packaging itself, but also the system, was highlighted before, and also the behavior change is very important. So I've just tried to get at the highlight of what works. Here you see some examples of what works. Reuse is very common. We didn't used to use only materials only once. It goes for books, goes for gas cylinders, goes for glass bottles and pallets. These are all examples of some of our work in projects that we have helped to scale reuse in different contexts, so in different national contexts as well. And this is an example, for instance, of what doesn't work in reuse if you don't have a deposit. So I would like to stress the importance of link between a deposit return system and reuse, because anything could be reusable, but if there's no system around it, especially no incentive to return it, then it won't work. So these are all perfectly fine to be reused, but if there's no deposit, for instance, the metal or steel trays will just be kept because they're very nice. The same goes for even the plastic reusable trays, or at the right-hand corner at the bottom, the pallets, the transport trays, they get lost because they are very appealing, so they're not kept in the system. Same goes for takeaway cups. If you don't have a deposit, they will end up in nature anyway. So the effectiveness of reuse systems also really depends on the deposit that is linked to it. We have some insights from our projects in different regional contexts. So we're based in Europe, so we do a lot of work in Europe, but we also do a lot of work in small island developing states. So also for the people who are joining from Oceania and from Latin America especially. But we've also done some work in sub-Saharan Africa. So there's I listed some of the differences, whereas sort of easier to get volumes of scale in Europe, obviously, but it makes perfect sense to do reusables in more remote areas because of the long transportation distances. I think also highlighted by before, the lady and Mohamed before, in remote areas, then you can really have that effective reuse going, comes better than any alternative for single use. And my call to action, just to end off with, is to make sure that if you have mandatory targets, I think the combination with legislators makes it really well scalable, also de-risks it for companies to invest in reuse. We need to move away from voluntary action to mandatory policy, because otherwise there's just a small part of consumers willing to go for reuse. So I would say a combination of legislation, an extended producer responsibility, and the needed infrastructure is needed to scale reuse systems using a deposit. So I would encourage all to use the principles from the Global Plastics Treaty that are discussed there to set reuse as a priority measure, use the learnings from successful deposit return schemes, and also set up industry consortia to enable synergies of scale. So it is really moving beyond any voluntary small-scale efforts. You start to involve industry and make it bigger. That's my 5 cents.
Thank you, Willemijn. Since we don't have so much time, we will go directly to the questions section. I have some questions here that Cesar forwarded me. We will start backwards. So we will start with you, Willemijn.
Okay.
If that's fine. Given your experience in seeds, Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa, as you shared right now, what would you say is the most common mistake pitfall countries make when trying to copy paste or bring like solutions that they have already applied, have been already applied in Europe, for example, in this global south?
Yeah, so in Europe, the distances and the cultural awareness is much different than in SIDS. So I would say you need much low-tech technology in more remote areas, and just make it Hafter-proof, we always say. So make it something that is very convenient, but also makes sense. So it is often in remote areas easier to do reuse instead of getting supplies of new. So I think getting something that works at a smaller scale even works in more remote areas. Whereas in Europe, you really need the synergies of scale, and you need high-tech traceability, whereas there's a lot more controlled effort in a smaller scale. So that is one of the bigger differences that we've noticed.
And since you're talking about scale, a follow-up question from your experience in Europe, which are like the success factors that count the most when trying to scale reuse systems, initiatives or startups and so on?
Yeah, obviously you need volumes, otherwise you cannot build infrastructure and reverse logistics in an efficient way, because you'll have empty trucks and that doesn't make sense. But also traceability is key. So you can have a high efficiency in terms of logistics, but also in terms of getting a high return rate. So making sure that you know where your packaging ends up and nudging people through incentives to get return rates makes it effective reuse system.
Thank you, Willemijn. If someone, I just want to mention, if someone in the panel wants to add something, please just raise your hand and we can keep it flowing. Otherwise, I would like to perfect. Marie, do you want to make a question?
Yes, thank you. I'm
Yes.
Marie Lulu from Greece. I'm co-founder of Kimia Nova Greece, and we also develop a reuse system within a European Horizon project, which is called Remedies. It's part of the Mediterranean Lighthouse in this European Blue Mission Med. So my question is, all the presentations were very, very interesting. Thank you for that. But I think I missed this end-of-life plan of the reuse systems. What happens after the reusable packaging comes to the end of its lifespan? So are there any plans about recycling them? Thank you.
I think, do you want Tiza, Willemijn, or Grace?
I think also might be Tiza might also be able to elaborate, but I think through PR3 there's a very a high encouragement of using recyclable materials only for reuse systems.
Yeah, I can quickly answer that. Yeah, so design-wise, it has to be safe and recyclable, because the idea is reuse, and then recycle. But also, because of the way that reuse is designed to be reused, there's also assumption that there's a higher recyclability value of the container if it's designed for reuse, right? But that assumption then was embedded in standards for packaging that PR3 worked on, which I can send you the link in the chat room if you're interested in knowing further about that.
I think that's very interesting also, Willemijn, what you shared with us, like those reuse initiatives that don't end up working, those that don't have an incentive to come back. Usually what we see is the reusable material. It's more material, it has to stand more uses. So if it doesn't come back, there's more material that end up wasted, right? So that's quite a paradoxical situation. Grace, do you want to add something there? You're muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that is, first of all, what we did in our case was look into other categories that were developed for a material that would last a lot, like, for example, agrochemicals. So we took from an industry to another one that was a consumer massive products in order to guarantee the lifespan, let's say. And the other thought that comes to me as well is that one of the, let's say, the products are always selling through a brand. So in some, let's say, socioeconomical levels, especially in higher levels where also the trash and the residues are very big, maybe the brand the one that needs to show the value of the product. In the end, consumers are buying not only the product, are also buying the brand. So I think that is very important in order to extend the life of the product, not the technical one, but also that something that consumers wants to keep because they value for that. And I think that there is a space there also about organizations and legislation, but also from the companies and the brands.
Thank you, Grace. That picks up a question that we have for Tiza, right? That it was something I mentioned before regarding the challenges in handling so many stakeholders. You showed a graph where there was lots of different connections that can be made and need to be made if we want to make this scalable and happen. What can you reflect about this need to connect so many different actors to make this possible? You are muted now. Cesar, can you unmute her? Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Perfect.
I wasn't allowed to unmute myself, so I needed to help with that. Well, I think the facilitation is needed. The premise behind having so many stakeholders become part of like a co-designing, right, of this reuse system is because we all have the consumer in mind. We want the consumer to see this as a convenience. And it has to be that way in order for this to be successful at scale. So that's the narrative that we brought forth when bringing up this conversation with policymakers, with industry, with as well as don't forget waste pickers and waste banks that are already working in the system, sorting waste, and should be brought into the reuse system because it is, as you can see, the infrastructure, the circular infrastructure is basically treading similar paths as waste pickers and waste banks are treading. So it's really, really important to have them on board. Now, the conversations are around how would this benefit you? if we're talking to a waste picker, how could this benefit you? How do you see yourself in the system? If we're talking to a brand, a big brand owner, how do you see yourself in this system, and how could this benefit you? And they need to envision that so that we can kind of co-create this design together. So through those approaches, we did plenty of interesting pilots. I mean, big brands have done some reuse pilots. We've had reuse implemented in a waste bank that usually sorts waste, accepts empty containers that are bound for recycling. And through the work that we did in Jakarta, they diversified their business essentially, so that they also accepted reuse containers and sold reuse products to their customers. So there's plenty of stories like that where when you invite and you involve a lot of stakeholders, you get more of a richer kind of experience.
Grace, I think you wanted to add something on that, and after that, Safia, you have a question.
Should I go? I don't know what we're waiting for. Someone, I think, unmute Martin, maybe?
Yeah,
Thank you,
that's all.
Cesar. Sorry, I just wanted to make a short comment before you, Safia. I think what Tiza just mentioned is like it's very summarized, but it's like the sweet spot of, okay, how we articulate also like the social aspect of this is not only about like including them when the system is in place, but it's more about co-creating it, right? So like collaborating from the beginning, and that is a point that is seldom taken like so seriously. I think in most cases we see worldwide they are integrated once things are already pretty much defined, and that's kind of a problem. And I think you picked up on that really, really well. That was my thing. Sofia, yes.
Yeah. So first of all, lovely to join and see how this community is coming together. Some familiar faces. Good to see Tiza and a few others. Been in this reuse space journey for a long time, and I wanted to kind of give some inputs here, which I think would be useful to see, where the global DRS platform wants to position itself. My learning, or our learning, is that it is fundamentally policy that will really transform reuse, and that's primarily because we know that very few brands will do the right thing, and most brands will do what they're told to do if policy is asking them. So what we've been doing over the last year and a half is just being at that sort of in-between space between policymakers and industry, and really giving as much evidence as possible to policymakers so that they are informing within their teams better reuse strategies for reuse policy and DRS, really. So what I wanted to understand is from the role of what global DRS platform is looking to do is, if you are trying to mobilize reuse really at scale, it's trying to put more and more pressure and awareness for policymakers that are looking towards reuse as a cost-saving mechanism. And we've got data to evidence that, how reuse transforms public sector funding and reduces public sector funding from waste to much, much better, available funds to spend elsewhere. So how can we mobilize that more? I think that will be really the fundamental, powerful tool moving forward, is providing that evidence and really getting behind policymakers, because that's when you start to see really high return rates, and that's when things start to move properly. So it'd be good to know from your position is, how do you want us to support, because I think that's really, we've been trying to work out for many, bottom up, top down, how do we make this come alive over the last, God knows, a decade of doing this. That's been our biggest learning. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and how we can mobilize this community really to make that happen.
Thank you, Sofia, for the question. I think we can talk about this a little bit, and you give us the opportunity to develop a little bit on the vision of the platform. And that's why we are doing this webinar today. And we want to keep on creating these spaces where we get to pick up these topics, and where it's not only civil society that's listening to this, but also politicians, it's also industry, it's also other actors. And we want to keep on expanding on this in this way. We are convinced that reuse is and should be part of the solution. And we're also convinced that it can be integrated at a more scalable level with deposit systems. But we have to think, as many of the opponents today have said, very locally as well, because everywhere in the world we have different challenges, social, environmental, logistics, supply chain, many of the things that we have talked today. And we believe that it has to be collaborative. And that's why we are creating these spaces where we can connect and create solutions, or start talking about solutions together. And that's our ambition, to put our 5 cents in, okay, connecting people, creating networks. Maybe you now today get to know someone, or we get to know you, and we start talking about something, and hopefully this leads to a real life case that we want to also support and push forward. That's like in a nutshell, and we can keep on talking about this, but we are way over the time. I just, Nadine, you have the hand raised. I think we can take one more comment. Then we will have more questions that have not been addressed. And as I said before, we can pick up on them. And if the speakers can send us the answers within a week or something like that, we will upload them in the website for you all to access them. But Nadine, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you so much. One part I dropped out, unfortunately. The network in Egypt is pretty bad. But one of the key takeaways that I did not get a chance to present was you have to have, and I missed a lot of the conversation, but we really need to think of all components of society when even working at a very fundamental local level. You need to include, like we said, waste pickers, any kind of formal waste management, the city council, local businesses, especially those that are impacted by the plastic pollution or the environment, can lead the way. And this is what we found in Dahab. But also, I want to bring a gender lens on this. Most of these products are being used by women. Do not forget to include them from the very start, or from the design stage on, including ideation. So I think that we need to think of stakeholders as part of the ideation phase of any deposit and reuse. I completely support the standards that PR3 is making, but we need to localize that, take those as global standards and see how we can utilize them. And sorry to have the last word, but please do not forget the women, the housewives, and the poorer they are, the more likely they are already have reuse solutions. So let's not keep looking at those that can necessarily come and have agency, but looking at this as a culture where we provide reuse as an opportunity to provide agency for some of the most disenfranchised in our communities. And I'm sorry if this was a repeat of other people's interventions. My network was really bad.
No worries. I think you actually made a good closure for the webinar. It was really good. We picked up on a couple of those points before as well, and those are really, really important. And so thanks for recalling that. Well, as said, we're going to close the webinar now because we are way over time. We could keep on talking about this. I think we take the idea of making more of these sessions. I think it's really nutritious, and it's really nice to hear all adding ideas and thinking of how we can solve this big problem. Sophia, we will also get in contact with you, and anyone else who wants to contact us can do it, and we will make sure to contact as soon as possible. So thanks again, and next year, as I said before, we will have more webinars. So please, if you want to participate as a speaker as well, there is the possibility you can do it. So let's talk and keep on connected.
Martin, can I say something?
Yes, of course.
Just super quick. Isabella, Maria, and other people that has joined, we are gonna try to get back to you, as Martin was saying, with your questions. Anyone who has any question, we are at info@globaldrsplatform.net. That's our main email. You are gonna find in our LinkedIn profile, Global DRS Platform in LinkedIn. We are from now you are gonna find the whole recording of the webinar. And yeah, this is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.